Major breaking news out of baseball where the Padres are finalizing a blockbuster trade to acquire Juan Soto from the Nationals. Our MLB insider Jim Bowden confirming that this is the trade Major League Baseball has been waiting to see go down over the past several weeks. The first baseman, Josh Bell, we also want to mention, also heading to San Diego in the deal. 23-year-old Juan Soto, future Hall of Famer, became available when he turned down multiple offers. The latest, a 15-year extension reportedly worth $440 million, which would have been the largest contract in baseball history, but he said no thank you, and instead opting to be traded there. Juan Soto, two-time All-Star World Series champ, a former batting champion, eligible for free agency after the 2024 season, and again, just 23 years old. So let's welcome in the guy confirming this news for us, our Jim Bowden there. Jim, I know you may have to look at your phone in the middle of all of this because so many moving parts. You tweeted out the Nationals are getting the biggest haul of any trade in Major League Baseball history. Explain how this went down and the details of it.
Yeah, so the Nationals have been working. Once Juan Soto turned down that $440 million offer, they were working the phones. They touched base with all 29 other teams. And it came down to three teams. It came down to the Padres, the Cardinals, and the Dodgers. But in the end, it was the Padres farm system that made the difference. It was just superior to the other teams here. And what they got back in this deal, quite frankly, as you just said, it is the biggest haul in the history of sports since the Herschel Walker trade, when the Cowboys traded him to the Vikings, which led to 2 Super Bowls for the Cowboys. It's that kind of trade for baseball. So let's talk about going back to Washington in this deal. They get 2 outfielders, Robert Hassel III, who I've said on numerous times will win a batting title someday. Reminds me a lot of Christian Yelich at the same stage. James Wood has a chance to be a Triple Crown candidate someday. He's probably the #1 prospect in this deal. C.J. Abrams is a top of the order type of player. He was rushed to the big leagues when he wasn't ready, but he can play shortstop or play second base. He's a guy that'll get on base, steal a whole bunch of bases. They get Mackenzie Gore, who started to figure things out this year, still has big upside if he can stay healthy. The sleeper in this deal is Harlan Susana. This guy's a 6'6" right-hander that throws 98 miles an hour. And by the way, in his last outing, he was throwing 98 on pitch number 103. He's the sleeper in the deal. So, I mean, this is just a huge package going back to Washington, and this is going to really expedite, their rebuilding program. You look at Mike Trout with the Angels, right? The Angels have never been able to win with Mike Trout. The Nationals didn't want the same thing to happen with Soto, so they decided to move him, and they got as big a package as anybody could have anticipated them getting. Great job by Mike Rizzo. On the other side for the Padres, Amanda, I don't think there's any doubt they're now a legitimate World Series threat. When you have Juan Soto, Manny Machado, and Fernando Tatis Jr. in the middle of your lineup, you can hit the best pitching in the sport. So it doesn't matter who you match up with in the playoffs, the Mets with DeGrom and Scherzer, or the Brewers with Burns and Woodruff, or the Dodgers with Gonsolin and Kershaw. This is a lineup that's going to be able to beat the best in the game. Couple that with the fact they traded for Josh Hader yesterday, arguably the best closer in the league. The Padres, they may not catch the Dodgers. I don't think there's a chance that'll happen in the West, but they're going to get in as a wild card team. And in short series, this is going to be a very scary team that no one's going to want to play.
The Padres absolutely in the mix now. This shows that they're going all in. But you mentioned in the short term there because it seems the danger zone for them now is payroll, especially looking ahead to 2023. I mean, so how quickly are the Padres looking to have success, and how dangerous is that payroll next season?
Well, look, they know that with Soto, you've got 3 postseasons to try to win a World Series, and they know their window to win is the next 3 years. This is their window, and they want to go for it. But the other thing that they mentioned to me in the last hour is if things go south, they can always trade Juan Soto in the offseason for prospects. They can always trade him at next trade deadline if things don't go in the right direction. But it's not very often that a small market team like San Diego has a legitimate chance of winning World Series, and they have a window right now to do it. And A.J. Preller decided it was okay to unload the farm system to get it done. And quite frankly, I would have done it too. I think it's one of these trades that when you get done looking at it and evaluating, I think it's going to work for both teams. I think if I was Washington, I definitely would have made this trade And if I were the Padres where they are, I would have done it too. So trades are supposed to work for both teams. And this is one of those trades, Amanda, that I think really will work for both teams.
For the Nationals side, I mean, you mentioned just the haul that they're getting there. Is this the best offer Mike Rizzo could have said yes to out of all the teams that were in contention at the end?
Oh, it wasn't even close. There isn't even a second place team. Look, the Dodgers certainly have a lot of good prospects that they were willing to part with. The Cardinals were willing to part with guys off their major league team. But the comparison in terms of the ceiling of players wasn't even in the same arena. And that's why this deal got done so early today. Instead of waiting to the deadline, Mike Rizzo, when he got up this morning, knew exactly where he was trading Juan Soto to. He just had to make sure he got that final last piece, and he was able to do it today. He had to put Josh Bell in the deal to get that final prospect, which was really important to him, and Harlan Susanna, but he was able to get it. So 2 legitimate starting pitchers. He's got 2/3 of his outfield for the future done. He's got his shortstop done, all in one-stop shopping. So hopefully it's going to work out for both teams.
Jim, try to put this in perspective of trades that have gone down in baseball history. I mean, Juan Soto, just 23 years old. We've seen what he's accomplished thus far. Have we ever seen a trade like this before?
Well, I guess the one trade you could point to is when the Marlins traded Miguel Cabrera, who had a Hall of Fame future like Soto. Cabrera was 2 years older than Soto at the time, but the return in that trade was significantly different. If you remember, that was Cameron Maybin was the headliner, who was an overhyped prospect, and left-handed pitcher Andrew Miller, who most scouts thought would be a reliever rather than a starter. The return the Marlins got wasn't even close to what this is today. So, in terms of the return for a superstar, I know in my baseball career, I have never seen a return like this ever. And I don't think in the history of the sport, we've ever seen a return like this. But we've also never seen a 23-year-old superstar traded when his prime years are the next 7 or 8 years in front of him.
Yeah, at the All-Stars Futures game there, I think the majority of players are actually older than Juan Soto, hoping to get where he is at some point. Of course, that will never happen for many of them because of the talent that we see with Juan Soto. Let's talk about Juan Soto. Look, he said when he turned down that deal, which would have been the largest contract in baseball history, he said, I want to go to a team that's going to be a winner. How does he feel about this deal, do you think?
Yeah, look, he's going to say all the right things as he leaves Washington. He won a world championship in 2019 in Washington, and no one's ever going to take that away from him. He's got the ring, he's got the trophy, and he really was beloved by the fans in Washington. But he also knew this year there was no pathway for that Nationals team to not only win this year, but in the next several years. And he's in the prime of his career. He doesn't want to be in the same position that Mike Trout has been in with the Angels. He wants to be in the biggest stage at the biggest moments. He got a taste of it in 2019. He wants it again. So he wanted to go to a winning team, and he's got that opportunity now in San Diego. I mean, San Diego without the Chargers have just been all about the Padres. That ballpark is packed every night. Everybody in the Gaslamp district is celebrating and dancing every single night. And Juan Soto is going to walk over there with Fernando Tatis, 2 of the players with the most swag in the sport, with a legitimate shot at a World Series. I mean, Soto will say the right things, but I know one thing. He is more than thrilled to be able to go back to Southern California right now. When
we see that massive contract come down for him, what is that going to look like eventually?
He's going to get $500 million. I mean, look, the Nationals made a nice offer at $440 million, which was a record offer north of Mike Trout. I thought they did a very good job of doing that. But I mean, look, when you've got players like Carlos Correa making $35 million a year, Juan Soto is not going to sign for $29 million a year. I've said it. I said it 2 years ago. I'll say it today. Juan Soto will be the first $500 million player in baseball history. I don't know if it happens now or if he has to get the free agency to get there, but he will get $500 million when it's all said and done.
Jim, A+ for both teams on this?
I have to give an A++ to San Diego because you get Soto and you got a hater yesterday, but a straight A for the Washington Nationals for sure. You could never have gotten a better haul than what they were able to accomplish.
Jim Bowden, we appreciate it. We'll pay attention to your social media because, of course, there could be a few more movement, or excuse me, a few more details in this particular Juan Soto trade there. All right, so Major League Baseball deadline, 6 Eastern. We were waiting to see if this Juan Soto deal would get done at the last minute. It happened quite a few hours earlier, but we will have live coverage for you at 5:30 Eastern starting here on HQ.
All right, for more on the deal and what it does for this clubhouse, let's bring in MLB analyst Will Middlebrooks. Will, first of all, your reaction to this blockbuster trade.
I'm glad it's over with, right? Because now the floodgates will open even more. We saw a lot of action yesterday that we weren't expecting until today. Everyone was kind of waiting on Soto. Who's going to get Soto? Because if the Cardinals get him, then they won't go after pitching. Well, now they're going to go after pitching, clearly, because they're not going to get Juan Soto. Now it's Eric Hosmer. He has a full trade, no trade clause. Like, is he going to say, okay, trade me? Of course he will. He's not going to stick around after a team says we don't want you anymore. But I'm fired up for the Padres. My goodness. You look at their lineup. Soto, Tatis, Machado, Bell. I mean, they got a lot better. Leave it to A.J. Preller to make a splash.
Does the Hosmer situation complicate things? Like, how could that do for this deal here?
Ultimately, he could tell them no. I mean, by rule, by his contract, the small print says a no trade. He does not have to approve a trade, but he will. No one, he's not going to hold up this team getting Juan Soto and Josh Bell, and arguably one of the biggest trades of all time at the trade deadline, for him to stay, because that would be very awkward in that clubhouse. It would be very awkward. Every at bat, he would no longer receive any claps from the fans, but just boos the rest of his career in San Diego. So that would never happen. You never want to be in a place where you're not wanted, right? I think not that Washington, D.C. was his choice of where he wants to go, but on the bright side, he's from Broward County. He's from not far from where they have spring training, so that's a bright spot, at least for him.
Well, certainly, and doesn't want to be that guy. Will, if you're in that clubhouse for the Padres, I mean, what are you thinking as you get news of this deal?
I am fired up. I mean, not that this club needed to be fired up. They're a very good team. I don't think they're going to win their division now or anything like that, but you go get a closer in Josh Hader, who no one thought was even on the trading blocks, and you get that, you're excited just for that. And then you get one of the best players to ever play this game. He's only 23 years old, and we're already saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer. That's insane. That's how good he is. He's a batting champ, a World Series champ, 2-time All-Star. I mean, he's only 23 years old. He's going to sign a 15-year deal. He's playing alongside Fernando Tatis Jr., who, when he's healthy, we talk about him like this. We've talked about Machado like this. This team is so good. This clubhouse is beyond fired up. They don't need a pick-me-up, but they just got it.
Well, Jim Bowden was saying that, I mean, this is San Diego's window, the next 3 years here. They've got Soto for at least 3 postseasons before he becomes a free agent. Do you agree with that? And is there enough there right now to challenge for a World Series title?
Absolutely. So like I said, I don't see them jumping ahead 12 games and beating the Dodgers in the NL West. The Dodgers are still really good and one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball. They are prepping themselves for a wild card series. It's not a one game go home now. It's a winner take all. Now you have to play a 3-game series against probably the Braves or the Mets, who are 2 very good teams. And now they're stacking that lineup. They have the offense. You have Darvish, you have Manaea, you have Musgrove, Snell, Clevenger. Mackenzie Gore's gone, but he was hurt. And now you have Hader at the backside of the bullpen. They are stacking themselves for that wild card series against, like I said, either the New York Mets or the Atlanta Braves.
All right, let's look at the odds. There's been a change, certainly some movement with Soto coming in to this Padres team. They started as a plus 2,000 to win the World Series. Now you look at them at 8 to 1. You look at those National League odds being cut in half from 8 to 1 to 4 to 1. Will, when you look at this team, I mean, is there any particular weakness at this point, or if what they've done in the last 2 days pretty much, put them at the top of the heap in terms of being ready to win a World Series?
I think looking in their bullpen, I mean, being able, obviously Josh Hader is a massive addition. He makes them a lot better ball club. He shores up. He's capable of giving you 6 outs every night in the postseason if he needs to. But you need to shore up the bullpen just a little bit more. Add a couple, maybe a matchup type guys like an Aaron Loop, who's floated around the last few years, but has been very good in the postseason for teams. Could see him maybe landing there. I'm not saying Preller's done. I'll never ever question the fact that if AJ Preller's done making moves, he's probably creating a situation right now to pick up another bullpen arm. I think they're good on their starting pitching front. I think their lineup is obviously lethal, especially when they get Tatis back. Seeing those odds do what they just did, that's a real thing, and I think a lot of people will agree with me when I say I agree that they are a real contender.
Will, we're not remiss to mention the fact that you were a member of the San Diego Padres when they went all in for a World Series title. It didn't necessarily work out, but in terms of this fan base, what can you tell us about the fan base? What can you tell Juan Soto about where he's headed?
Yeah, the culture there is a lot different now than I went. So I was traded over there for the 2015 season. I came from Boston. Matt Kemp, Justin Upton, James Shields, Derek Norris, fun group of guys. That was AJ Preller's first really rock star GM, and I was lucky enough to be a part of it. I was kind of a throw-in, but it was fun to be a part of it nonetheless. But you could tell they went from a town that in the 90s they liked baseball because they were good. Then they went through a really tough patch through the early 2000s. All right, now we have talent again where to come, but if you don't win, they disappear. It's a surf town, it's a food town, it's a touristy spot. But right now, the last couple of years, the talent that they've put on the field there and what they're doing now, this is turning into a baseball town. No doubt about it.
Will, what does this trade do for Washington? I mean, we've talked about, they're getting a huge haul here, one of the biggest deals in sports history. What does this do for the Nationals in terms of their rebuild in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, we knew they were rebuilding the last full year, 2 years really. So this sets them up really nicely. You look at the talent they got. C.J. Abrams, former first prospect for the Padres. Mackenzie Gore, former #1 prospect. Hassel, current #1 prospect. Wood was a #3 prospect. Susana, 14th, and who they're saying they think he can really jump up and be a high velo, top international type arm, premium arm. I mean, Eric Hosmer is a veteran guy who can come in and help form these. I know Eric Hosmer really well. He's a leader. He is very good with the younger players in the games and making them feel comfortable, teaching them the ins and outs of the game. I think he'll be a good fit there with the younger group. But they're setting themselves up very nicely for the next few years. World Series champion, our CBS Sports HQ baseball analyst Will Middlebrooks, joining us to discuss the trade of Juan Soto from the Washington Nationals to the San Diego Padres. Thanks, Will. And of course, for more conversation on this, David Sampson is back. Nothing Personal with David Sampson, a podcast that you can download and follow wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can also watch the pod on YouTube.
Let's welcome in Frank Stanfield to talk about fantasy baseball and the impact of this blockbuster trade. Let's talk about the value surrounding Juan Soto first and foremost. Does it change at all?
Yeah, I would have to say that it goes up here, obviously, right? Joining a lineup that will include Manny Machado, his former teammate Josh Bell also joining him here in San Diego. And this weekend, it looks like Fernando Tatis is ready to start a rehab assignment. He's missed all of the season due to a wrist injury. It's just so crazy to imagine a lineup that includes both Fernando Tatis and Juan Soto. This isn't the All-Star game. This is a real lineup now, and you have to think that this means the stock is up for Juan Soto. His previous lineup that he was in, sure, he had Nelson Cruz, the aforementioned Josh Bell, but joining a much, much better lineup now should be more opportunities for RBI, for runs scored. This is one of the most complete hitters in the game of baseball that we have today in terms of batting average, ability to get on base, hit for power, a little bit of speed as well. I would say it's been a bit of a down season for Juan Soto. He showed some signs of turning around in July, but this is definitely stock up, and he should be regarded as one of the top 5 players in fantasy baseball.
Yeah, a lot of people feel when these trades go down, we could see a boost even in their performance there, potentially from Juan Soto. What about the other guys around him? Does this impact anybody specifically, or just look across the board?
Yeah, I guess for Eric Hosmer, unfortunately, right, it looks like he's going back in the deal to Washington, so his stock goes way down. Not that he was a great player for fantasy baseball purposes anyway, but I think it just kind of raises the value of everybody in this lineup now, right? Jake Cronenworth, likely to hit near the top of this lineup, should be able to score a ton of runs. Manny Machado, who is having a great season regardless, really has been carrying the Padres offense all season, and now he gets these reinforcements in Soto and Josh Bell and hopefully Fernando Tatis over the coming weeks. And even Tatis, I mean, let's talk about him. Hopefully he comes back and he's, 100% healthy, but this will be the best lineup that he has played in his career. So now we're talking about 2 of the really top 5 players in fantasy baseball being on the same team here in Fernando Tatis Jr. and Josh Bell.
So Washington on the other side getting 5 of the Padres' top prospects there. We've been talking to Jim Bowden and Will Middlebrooks, and they're super excited about these prospects and just how elite they are. Are any of them worth adding this season?
Yeah, I would say C.J. Abrams. He's already had a cup of tea here with the San Diego Padres. He wasn't playing every single day for them. He's been in and out of the lineup. I think that was partially the Padres trying to showcase him for a mega deal like this, but this is a massive, massive haul. You can't convince me that any prospect package would have been worth trading away Juan Soto, but this is probably as close as you can get to a fair return in really the top 4 prospects in the Padres organization. So Mackenzie Gore, he's dealing with an arm injury right now. We'll kind of see how that works its way out. I don't think he's worth adding. C.J. Abrams is really the one that I want to follow here. He's got a legitimate hit tool, lots of speed. You see that in his minor league numbers. So if you play in a roto or a categories league, C.J. Abrams is the name to add. I believe he'll play every day right out of the gate here with the Washington Nationals. The other names, I don't think they'll have an impact this season, but for years to come, I think we could see, Robert Hassel as soon as next year, maybe James Wood towards the end of next season, the year after that. Obviously, for their dynasty value, there's no one blocking them on the Washington Nationals. So it's a very, very good package that the Nationals received here. And if you want to add anyone, I think C.J. Abrams is the name.
So overall, how much more attractive, though, not just this season, but in the next 3, are the Nationals right now?
Look, if you're going to make a move like this, you got to go big, right? And you have to almost shoot for quantity over quality. And it's not like they didn't get quality. They got really legitimate prospects here, but the top 4 prospects really in the Padres organization coming over here. And it's going to take some time, but if you're going to do it, I think this is probably the way to do it. As I mentioned, C.J. Abrams looks like he's going to be a star, former top 10 prospect. Mackenzie Gore showed really good signs earlier in the season, now dealing with an elbow injury, so that kind of worries you a little bit, but he was largely regarded as one of the top pitching prospects in the game for the past 5 years. Hassel, legitimate hit tool, lots of speed. People think that he's going to grow into his power. James Wood, 6'7", and anytime you hear that, you kind of just automatically think of Aaron Judge. Nobody's going to be Aaron Judge, but James Wood, a big body. People were kind of worried about how he would hit in the minor leagues. He's hit extremely well so far this year, and the power is there. He could run a little bit. This is about as complete of a package return as you can get, and I think within the next 3 years, as we start to see Hassel and hopefully James Wood, these guys can really get the Washington Nationals back on track.
Frank, just really quick, hopping back over to the Padres there. We've seen the odds for them jump significantly. No surprise there when it comes to winning the World Series or the National League there. How do you feel about the Padres this season and moving forward when it comes to their odds?
So I agree with these moves to the odds, and it just kind of stinks, frankly, that they're in the same division as the Los Angeles Dodgers because they're going to have to play in that wild card series. I heard Will Middlebrooks talking about that. No longer a 1-game series, but a best 2 out of 3. I agree with these moves. I think it makes sense. I mean, as complete of a team as you can find right now, from the lineup to the pitching staff. Their pitching staff has the 7th best ERA among starting pitchers this season, with Joe Musgrove, and Yu Darvish has really been amazing throughout the course of the season here. And then their bullpen, they go out and add Josh Hader yesterday, who's regarded as one of, if not the best closer in all of baseball. So I say maybe the only weakness is defense a little bit, but in terms of hitting, their starting pitching staff, their bullpen, maybe they go out and add another ancillary piece to this bullpen here. They just got Josh Hader. They have great pitching. They have an amazing lineup. I agree with all these moves. They just kind of have to make it through the wild card round, and then it's really whoever's hot at that point in the season.
Good day to be a San Diego Padres fan. Frankie, thank you so much. We appreciate it there. For more fantasy baseball, make sure to download and follow Fantasy Baseball Today. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.